The moment my girlfriend ended everything, it felt like the ground didn't just shake beneath my feet, it vanished completely. 1 second, I was standing on the porch of the house where I thought my future lived, and the next, I was holding the weight of a goodbye that came without warning, without mercy. My chest tightened, my ears rang, and the silence after her decision was louder than any scream. I remember staring at the door, numb, replaying every memory, every promise, every small moment I thought meant something. I didn't know then that the worst heartbreak of my life was about to become the beginning of something I never imagined, something that would test my pain, my pride, and my idea of what love really means. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that life can surprise us in the darkest moments, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. I had loved her in the simple, honest way that grows quietly over time. Not the loud kind of love people show online, but the steady kind built on routine, trust, and small sacrifices. I worked long hours, saved carefully, dreamed carefully. Her family knew me well, especially her mother, a woman who carried both warmth and an intensity that made you feel seen. She was the type who noticed when you were tired, when your smile didn't reach your eyes. I always respected her, but I never imagined she would play a role in my life beyond being my girlfriend's parent. The breakup itself was cold and rushed, like she had already moved on weeks before I arrived. She spoke about finding herself, about needing something different, about how love sometimes just fades. I didn't argue, not because I agreed, but because my throat felt sealed shut. When you're blindsided, words don't come easily. I nodded, listened, and tried to hold myself together with whatever dignity I had left. When she walked away, leaving me alone on that porch, I felt small, replaceable, and deeply foolish for believing in forever. I was about to leave when the door opened again. I assumed it was her, maybe coming back to soften the blow, maybe to say something that would help me breathe again. Instead, it was her mother standing there, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. The air felt heavier, like something important was about to happen. She didn't rush me away or offer empty comfort. She simply invited me inside with a calm certainty that made my legs move even though my mind was still spinning. Inside the house, everything felt the same, yet completely different. Family photos on the walls, the smell of familiar food, the quiet hum of a place that had once felt like a second home. My heart ached as I realized I no longer belonged there. I expected her mother to offer sympathy and then gently suggest I move on. Instead, she sat with me, listened to my broken explanation of what had just happened, and watched me fall apart without interrupting. There was no judgment in her eyes, only understanding. That day marked the start of a strange, confusing chapter. I began to visit the house occasionally, at her mother's invitation, under the pretense of checking in, of not being alone. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just a way to survive the immediate aftermath of the breakup. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into something deeper. She became a steady presence when my own family was far away and my friends didn't know what to say anymore. She offered meals when I forgot to eat, conversations when silence became unbearable, and quiet support without asking for anything in return. Still, guilt followed me everywhere. I questioned my intentions, my emotions, my sanity. Was I clinging to her because she reminded me of the woman who left me? Was this comfort healthy, or was it just delaying my healing? At night, I lay awake wrestling with these thoughts, feeling like I was walking a line I didn't fully understand. Society doesn't prepare you for relationships that don't fit neatly into boxes, especially ones born from heartbreak. As time passed, my life outside that house began to crumble. I struggled at work, distracted and exhausted. Friends drifted away, unsure how to help. Loneliness became my constant companion. Yet, in the middle of all that, her mother remained a grounding force. She encouraged me to focus on myself, to rebuild piece by piece. She spoke about resilience, about how life sometimes removes people not to punish us but to redirect us. Her words didn't erase my pain, but they softened it, like rain on dry ground. There were moments when I felt judged by the world, even when no one said anything out loud. I worried about what people would think if they knew how much I relied on her. I worried about crossing invisible lines, about misunderstanding kindness as something more. These fears kept me guarded, but they couldn't erase the bond forming between us, a bond built on shared vulnerability and mutual respect. Slowly, I began to change. I started waking up earlier, exercising again, taking pride in my work. I laughed more, genuinely, not out of politeness. I realized that healing didn't mean forgetting my past, but learning to carry it differently. Through her steady guidance, I learned that love isn't always romantic. Sometimes, it's the quiet decision to show up for someone when they are at their lowest. One afternoon, as I sat alone reflecting on how far I'd come, it hit me just how broken I had been on that porch weeks earlier. I remembered the emptiness, the humiliation, the fear of being unlovable. And yet, here I was, standing stronger, not because my ex came back, but because someone chose compassion over convenience. That realization humbled me deeply. If this story is already touching something inside you, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who might be standing on their own metaphorical porch right now, wondering if life is over. The turning point came when my ex returned briefly to collect some old belongings. Seeing her again stirred memories, but not the pain I expected. Instead, I felt clarity. I wished her well, genuinely. There was no bitterness left, only acceptance. That was the moment I knew I had healed more than I realized. Her mother watched quietly from a distance, and later, she smiled in a way that told me she saw the change too. What followed wasn't dramatic or scandalous. There was no sudden declaration or forbidden romance. There was honesty, boundaries, and time. We spoke openly about how complicated everything was, about the importance of doing what was right, not what was easy. Life didn't magically become simple, but it became real. We acknowledged the bond we shared and allowed it to exist without rushing to define it. In many ways, she became a symbol of second chances, not in love, but in humanity. She reminded me that family isn't always who you expect, and support can come from the most unlikely places. Through her, I learned that being dumped didn't mean being discarded. Sometimes, it means being redirected toward a version of yourself you couldn't have reached otherwise. As this story comes close to its end, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below with your thoughts, your experiences, or even just a single word that describes how this story made you feel. Your voice matters more than you know. Near the end of my journey, I stood once again on that same porch, not as a broken man, but as someone who had survived loss and found meaning beyond it. I realized that the bell that rang that day didn't signal ownership or replacement. It signaled responsibility, care, and an unexpected form of love that helped rebuild a shattered soul. My life didn't turn out the way I planned, but it turned out honest, grounded, and full of gratitude. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel seen or hopeful in any small way, please engage with this video. Like it, share it, and leave a comment. You never know who might find strength in your words. And remember, sometimes when one door closes, it's not the end of your story. It's the quiet beginning of a better one.